Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Oh Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Together please. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet nashtaprayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke nashtir bhavati nestiki. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Iti Namene Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Svarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Today We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, titled Divinity and Divine Service, verses 1 to 7. In chapter number 1, we saw that 88,000 sages have gathered in the forest of Naimisharanya, headed by Saunaka Rishi. And they are gathered for a 1,000-year-long sacrifice, Havan, for the benefit of mankind in general. And they see this one divine personality called Suta Goswami, and because of his divine caliber and his spotless character, they approach him, headed by Saunaka Rishi, and ask 6 questions. And entire Bhagavatam is really an answer to those 6 questions by Suta Goswami quoting Shukadev Goswami. So there is a story within a story kind of format. So chapter 2 here, we begin with Suta Goswami's answers to the questions of the sages. For the first time, he starts actually speaking philosophy. So just for a quick recap, we will go through the 6 questions of the sages. What is the first question? Does anyone remember? Sorry? The first one is, what is the ultimate good for all humanity? What is the ultimate good for humanity? The second question is, what is the essence of all scriptural knowledge, of all Vedas? Third is, why did Krishna appear on this planet from the womb of Devaki? The fourth question is, what were the activities of the Lord in relation to creation? The fifth is, what are the incarnations of Krishna, avatars, and what are the activities of each incarnation? And the last question is, when Krishna departs from this world, whose shelter does religion take, dharma take, principles of religion? Where can they be found after Krishna has left? So in these first 7 verses, Shukadev Goswami answers the first 2 questions and then obviously expands on that. So do you have that on the phone, the verses? Do you have the verses? So yeah, 1 to 7. I was thinking maybe you can read we can read the translations. We can take turns and then we can comment on that. So let's start with verse number 1 and we will pause after each translation.
Ugrashrava, Suta Goswami, the son of Romaharshana, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply.
So here Suta Goswami's original name was Ugrashrava. His birth name is Ugrashrava Sauti, and then he came to be known as Suta Goswami. He is the son of Romaharshana, who was killed by Balram. And this verse says that he was fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmana. So this verse actually indicates the qualification or the right way a question should be asked, or what is the perfect, how to satisfy a guru or a perfect spiritual personality. Because we understand that we receive the association of a divine personality by much, it's a very rare thing to receive the association of a pure devotee. And then if we approach them and ask questions which are trivial in nature, which don't really benefit us or benefit others, then it can be a waste of that opportunity. And so the sages knew this very well. Obviously, they were so advanced. So the questions they asked were on point, meant for the greater benefit of mankind and their own benefit. And so because subject matter of these questions was Krishna, was devotional service, and was the benefit of people at large. And so Suta Goswami was perfectly satisfied listening to these questions, because he saw this as an opportunity to serve, to speak about Krishna. So it is perfect questions, perfect answers. Same title, Srila Prabhupada's book was given, that Srila Prabhupada himself titled on his conversations with Bob Cohen, Brahmatirtha Prabhu. So it's an indication or suggestion that this is how we should ask questions to spiritual personalities. Verse number 2.
Srila Sutta Goswami said, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the heights of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, 'O my son!' Indeed, only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father."
Yes. So now there is another point of etiquette that we see here, is that before actually answering the questions, Suta Goswami offers obeisances to his own spiritual master, who is Shukadeva Goswami, seeks blessings. And then he also describes a brief event in the life of Shukadeva Goswami. Shukadeva Goswami was in the womb of his mother for 16 years. He did not take birth. And he was a perfect personality right since he was in the womb, or even before that. And because he was so liberated, he did not want to come out. He did not want to come in contact with the material world. But as soon as he comes out after 16 years, he walks out of the home and he leaves the home, he leaves his family, and he starts walking towards the forest. Now, we can see how painful this could be for his father, Vyasadeva. Because here is a father who has waited in anticipation for 16 long years to see his son. And back in those days, because Vyasadeva was a Brahmana, in Brahmana families, the thread ceremony and the other ceremonies of the childbirth were considered very important and were a huge part of the culture. And Vyasadeva had these big dreams to see his son go through those ceremonies, to do those ceremonies for his son. But when he saw that Sukadeva Goswami immediately left home, did not pay any heed to his family, he was so heartbroken. His heart was shattered, his dreams were shattered. And he was running behind Shukadeva Goswami, crying out, calling out to him, "Oh my dear son, please wait." But Shukadeva Goswami, being completely detached, kept walking and did not revert to the cries of his father. And Suta Goswami said that only the trees, the echo from the trees, Vyasadeva was shouting and crying so loud that the trees were echoing his sound. And that was the only response he received. He did not receive any response from his son. But there was one small solace for Vyasadeva here, because Suta Goswami says in the beginning that, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all." So he's indicating that even though Shukadeva Goswami left home, he can enter the heart of devotees, of all people. And so he's indicating that Vyasadeva should now think of his son within his heart instead of looking for him externally. And that is also an indication for all of us in situations where we lose contact or we lose physical association of a pure devotee. Then the only solace is to remember him or her in our heart and build that relationship within our heart. Next verse.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him, Shuka, the spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience.
Yeah, he once again, Suta Goswami offers obeisances to Shukadev Goswami, and he says he's the son of Vyasadeva who, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement. So, prior to Suta Goswami, Shukadev Goswami spoke this Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. And here there is a very important lesson. It is that detachment or spiritual advancement should not make us hard-hearted or insensitive. Because we see before this that Shukadev Goswami was completely detached to his family and he left home. So it appears that he is hard-hearted. He's not paying attention to the feelings of his father. But now we see that he, out of his great compassion for those gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, he had this deep compassion for the suffering mankind. And even though it appeared before that he was hard-hearted, we now understand that a devotee can never really be hard-hearted. And so that is actually a test for us, that as we advance in spiritual life, are we becoming more hard-hearted in the name of detachment? Or is our compassion increasing for others around us? A devotee is Thitikshava Karunika. Srimad Bhagavatam says, Thitikshava Karunika Suhrida Sarvadehinam Ajata Shatrava Shanta Sadhava Sadhabhushana. The symptoms of a sadhu are that he is tolerant, merciful, and friendly to all living entities. He has no enemies, he is peaceful, he abides by the scriptures, and all his characters are sublime. Sadhu Bhushana. Bhushana also means ornaments. And so these qualities of tolerance and mercy and compassion are actually ornaments on the body of a sadhu. They actually decorate the sadhu and make him more attractive. So compassion is the test. In the purport to this verse, I'll read an excerpt which I found very instructive. Srila Prabhupada writes, there is no point in arguing that a materialistic man can be happy. No materialistic creature, be he the great Brahma or an insignificant ant, can be happy. Everyone tries to make a permanent plan for happiness, but everyone is baffled by the laws of material nature. Therefore, the materialistic world is called the darkest region of God's creation. Yet the unhappy materialists can get out of it simply by desiring to get out. Unfortunately, they are so foolish that they do not want to escape. Therefore, they are compared to the camel who relishes thorny twigs because he likes the taste of the twigs mixed with blood. He does not realize that it is his own blood and that his tongue is being cut by the thorns. Similarly to the materialist, his own blood is as sweet as honey, and although he is always harassed by his own material creations, he does not wish to escape. Such materialists are called karmis. Out of hundreds of thousands of karmis, only a few may feel tired of material engagement and desire to get out of the labyrinth. Such intelligent persons are called jnanis. The Vedanta Sutra is directed to such jnanis. But Srila Vyasadeva, being the incarnation of the Supreme Lord, could foresee the misuse of the Vedanta Sutra by unscrupulous men, and Therefore, he personally supplemented the Vedanta Sutra with the Bhagavad Purana. It is clearly said that this Bhagavatam is the original commentary on the Brahma Sutras. Srila Vyasadeva also instructed the Bhagavatam to his own son, Srila Sukadeva Goswami, who was already at the liberated stage of transcendence. Srila Sukadeva realized it personally and then explained it. By the mercy of Srila Sukadeva, the Bhagavad Vedanta Sutra is available for all those sincere souls who want to get out of material existence. Next verse, please.
Hare Krishna. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Naranarayana, Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
Yeah. So before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, but one may ask, conquest over what? So Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, all the Vedic scriptures and the Puranas are meant for conquering the darkest region of material existence. So conquest over material existence. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to write in the purport, all men are not equal. The Puranas are so divided that any class of men can take advantage of them and gradually regain their lost position and get out of the hard struggle for existence. So there are so many Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, and all of them give or cater to slightly different categories of people. These people have different inclinations based on the modes of material nature that they are influenced with. And so there are Puranas like Shiva Purana, Linga Purana, Devi Purana, Padma Purana, and all of those cater to the inclinations of different types of people. And all of these people can find some solace, some advantage in that scripture that they read, and ultimately regain their lost position. However, Srila Prabhupada then writes, Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Puran, and it is especially meant for them who desire to get out of the material entanglement permanently. So those who are a little more advanced in their consciousness, who don't want to beat around the bush trying to enjoy material life, for them it is said that if they want to get out of material existence permanently, Srimad Bhagavatam is the only Puran that they need to approach. Next verse, please.
O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self.
So in verse number 1, we hear that after listening to the questions of the sages, Suta Goswami was completely satisfied. And now he is explaining himself why he was satisfied. He said, your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. So one thing is that because it is in relation to Krishna, and therefore it is relevant to the entire world. And only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, Krishna is our most intimate master, friend, father, or son, and object of conjugal love. Forgetting Krishna, we have created so many objects of questions and answers, but none of them are able to give us complete satisfaction. All things but Krishna give temporary satisfaction only. So if we are to have complete satisfaction, we must take to the questions and answers about Krishna. We cannot live for a moment without being questioned or without giving answers. Because the Srimad Bhagavatam deals with questions and answers that are related to Krishna, we can derive the highest satisfaction only by reading and hearing this transcendental literature. One should learn the Srimad Bhagavatam and make an all-round solution to all problems pertaining to social, political, or religious matters. Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna are the sum total of all things. So next is our verse for the day. We will read the Sanskrit and then the translation and purport. Please repeat after me. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. Please repeat. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukya apratihata yayatma suprasidati. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukya pratihata yayatma suprasidati. Word for word. Sa, that. Why? Certainly. Pumsam, for mankind. Para, sublime. Dharma, occupation. Yata, by which. Bhakti, devotional service. Adhokshaje, unto the transcendence. Ahetuki, causeless. Apratihata, unbroken. Yaya, by which. Atma, the self. Suprasidati, completely satisfied. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Please repeat. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. This is one of the most beautiful verses in Srimad Bhagavatam, because it defines the supreme dharma, the primary dharma for all mankind, which can completely satisfy the self. All other Vedic literatures define dharmas and duties and activities and rules and regulations and so on, and principles which may or may not be permanent in nature. A lot of the dharmas that are defined or are explained, there is a dharma based on the gender we have, there is a dharma based on the place we are in, there is dharma based on our family relationships, dharma based on the country which we are. There are so many different duties, occupations that we need to follow in this human body. But the supreme occupation, if one must ask, what is the supreme occupation? If you strip down all bodily conception, all bodily identities, what remains is Bhagavad Dharma. Paro Dharma. Yato Bhakti Rathokshaje. Bhakti is the only thing that remains. We will dive more into that discussion, but let's read the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Anyone would like to read?
In this statement, Sri Shuddha Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that fallen people or the people in general might easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called the Pravritti Marga, or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called the Nivritti Marga, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior, and the path of sacrifice for the supreme cause is superior. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence, or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. There is just the futile attempt to get rid of the miseries, and temporary cessation of misery is falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which leads one to external, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called the supreme quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, that is, without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of the devotional service of the Lord, without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruitive action, and philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service.
We have purposely denoted dharma as occupation because the root meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all-attractive living entity or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and is completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental, loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction.
Thank you. So, in this verse, Sutta Goswami answers the first question of the sages. What is the supreme occupation? Or what is the ultimate good for mankind? And so Sutta Goswami answers that by saying that the ultimate good for mankind is that which can completely satisfy the self, which is bhakti. Srila Prabhupada in this purport, he gives some very amazing points about performing bhakti. And he says that bhakti is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality of material enjoyment. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. And that is what Sutta Goswami also says in the translation, in the verse, is that he gives two prerequisites for bhakti, or for bhakti to be able to completely satisfy us. It should be unmotivated and uninterrupted. Ahetukya pratihata. These are the prerequisites that is required in the practice of devotional service for it to be able to completely satisfy us. If devotional service is tinged with the desire for material enjoyment or material gain or anything related to matter, then it will not have the best results. I want to go more into this, but we will first read the last verse of our range today, and then we will come back. So, verse number 7, translation. You can go ahead.
Devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Krishna, immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from.
Yes. By rendering devotional service unto Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment. It's as if it's a magical process that by advancing in devotional service, jnana and vairagya, detachment and knowledge, follow naturally. And this verse answers the second question of the sages, which is, what is the essence of all scriptural knowledge? So the essence of all scriptural knowledge is to develop devotional service unto Krishna and thus acquire causeless knowledge and detachment. In the purport to this verse, Srila Prabhupada writes, the principles of knowledge and detachment are two important factors on the path of transcendental realization. The whole spiritual process leads to perfect knowledge of everything material and spiritual. And the results of such perfect knowledge are that one becomes detached from material affection and becomes attached to spiritual activities. Becoming detached from material things does not mean becoming inert altogether, as men with a poor fund of knowledge think. Nishkarma means not undertaking activities that will produce good or bad effects. Negation does not mean negation of the positive. Negation of the non-essentials does not mean negation of the essential. Similarly, detachment from material forms does not mean nullifying the positive form. The bhakti cult is meant for realization of the positive form. When the positive form is realized, the negative forms are automatically eliminated. Therefore, with the development of the bhakti cult, with the application of positive service to the positive form, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things, and he becomes attached to superior things. Similarly, the bhakti cult, being the supermost occupation of the living being, leads him out of material sense enjoyment. So coming back to the previous verse, aphetukyan apratihata, unmotivated and uninterrupted, Srila Prabhupada says that attachment to devotional service should lead one to natural detachment. And he says, one naturally becomes detached from inferior things. So that unmotivation and uninterruption naturally follows with time as we practice bhakti. Like in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, he first approached Krishna for material gain. He wanted a large kingdom bigger than his grandfather. But in that process of practicing bhakti, he was naturally purified of that inferior desire of material gain. And so that follows. However, Srila Prabhupada, because he is trying to give us the most pure and the highest thing, he is saying that right from the beginning, it is better if we have a pure desire and if we practice bhakti without it being tinged with any desire for material gain. Because any mixed bhakti won't have the same result. Why? Because this world is called dukhayalam ashashvatam. Material energy is dukhayalam ashashvatam. And therefore, any activity that we do that is tinged with this material world or it is tinged with material interest will naturally draw dukkha, which is misery or unhappiness. And therefore, the goal is to make some use of the miseries, the terrible miseries that life throws at us, that we go through in this life, and use those miseries as a catalyst to our spiritual growth. Instead of doing things that expand those miseries, it is to use the pre-existing so many miseries, our karmic reactions, and so on, as a catalyst for our spiritual growth. And therefore, Bhurijan Prabhu, he prays, he said this beautiful prayer once in Vrindavan. He says, may the hard crushing wheel of life extract some humility from my offense hardened heart, and may the nectar of that humility give rise to pure love for Krishna. And that is the aspiration of a sadhaka, to completely satisfy the self, unmotivated and uninterrupted performance, practice of devotional service. Thank you very much. That is our time. Any questions or comments? Yes, Madhakunti.
Narottam Ananda, Narottam. Narottam Prabhu, thank you for a very, very erudite class. Very easy to comprehend. My question is, the statement here in the purport that bhakti is considered, according to them, bhakti, or the devotional service of the Lord, is meant for those who cannot perform the high-grade activities. Generally, it is said that the bhakti cult is meant for the Shudras, Vaishyas, and the less intelligent women class. But that is not the actual fact. The bhakti cult is the topmost of all transcendental activities, and therefore it is simultaneously sublime and easy. So my question has to do with sometimes in the years that I've been around, I have seen many different kinds of devotees come to this temple, and sometimes there is a mood of condescension. I feel it. I guess I'm just a big ocean of emotion here, I wear my feelings on my sleeve. So I feel things I'm very perceptive. It's not something I'm proud of. It's actually something that's a handicap. I'm too perceptive, and that is it's difficult for me. So what I'm trying to say is, how do we, we want to encourage everyone. We want everyone to feel loved, encouraged, appreciated. But how do we, because sometimes I confront it right in my face. I've had many situations where, Mataji, you don't know. Mataji, this is way over your head. Mataji, you don't, please step aside. So I've had that a lot. And what I'm trying to understand, how do we keep that mood of appreciation? What do? Do we just pray, or pray for the reckoning and understanding in our own heart, and to keep that attitude of gratitude, appreciate?
Yeah.
And thank you. Haribol.
No, thank you for the question. And thank you for being so open with your experience and your feelings. It's hard for me to answer this fully because I don't have that experience firsthand. So it's hard for me to be in your shoes and understand and feel how that must have felt like. Yeah, what I can think of is that there is certainly a lack of deep understanding on the part of those who do behave in that way, in a condescending manner. A lack of understanding of what it really means, these statements and these descriptions, what they actually mean. And there may be a superiority complex. There may be, so many different things within them that we can only guess, which may lead them to such behavior. Because we understand from Prabhupada's, his own life and his own dealings with people, that he was never at the very least even condescending to anyone, or putting anyone down for who they are, for what they are, be it new person or a very experienced devotee, be it any gender, any color, anyone. He was always engaging and uplifting people, always uplifting devotees, based on time, place, and situation, obviously. But he had female personal servants. Madhamalati was serving him for so long, And then he had female pujaris, and he was always taking advice from his young disciples and devotees. So we understand that that is obviously certainly not the right way to deal with any devotee. However, if we do encounter that, well, I think that it can be two things here that I can think of. Is that one is that if we may be in a position to maybe help them, because we can be tolerant, but then that attitude is not helpful for that person in that person's growth. So if we are in a position to correct or help them or advise them as a friend, then we can do that. That Prabhu, this is not the spiritual culture that we are trying to develop, and or approach someone who can correct them. And maybe the other thing I can think of is it can be an opportunity for us also to humble ourselves further. Not to say this for you personally, because I know you to be very humble yourself and tolerant, but in general, any criticism or any condescending behavior, being a subject of that, can be an opportunity to practice more tolerance and remind ourselves that also that this is not how we want to treat other people as well. This is all I can think of. So, thank you. Thank you. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that wonderful question, Mother Kunti. So, I was thinking about how Bhagavad Gita is a law book, and Krishna has already stated in 3rd chapter, he says, Sadrisham cheshtate sasyaha prakriti jnanavanamapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. What can repression accomplish? So everyone, each one of us has acquired certain modes and different shades of modes from material nature. So we have our own dispositions, and we do not have any control over the other's disposition. And Krishna says repression cannot accomplish. So it is beyond our reach to change anybody, right? Number one. And number two, when I was in the ashram, many brahmacharis I've seen, they had this one single problem. Everybody used to feel not being loved. They used to always we used to have counseling with our counselors, and most of the counselors, they used to share that most of the brahmacharis, they felt that I want attention of this devotee, including myself. I also had, I used to feel why this devotee doesn't love me, why this devotee never gives me any attention. He always gives attention to others, and I used to feel the same way, and I'm sure all of us, we feel the same way with regards to any particular person. So then we heard this in one of the classes by my Guru Maharaj Radhana Swami. So he said, if we expect love and appreciation or affection from others, the charity begins from home. We have to start loving others. We have to start appreciating others. So the feeling that I have, that I lack love from someone, I should start loving that person. And then automatically Krishna, who is situated in the heart, right, he knows. And Krishna, who is situated as super soul in that person's heart, or others for that matter, there will be reciprocation.
Right.
So it has to start from us. We have to say, this is my understanding.
It also reminds me of this one thing that your experience and the experience of many other devotees reminds me that, like Prabhu said, is that a lot of times in spiritual life, or in our practice, in this movement, in this community, a lot of times we when I say this, I'm instructing more to myself actually, is that we forget to work on our attitude and how we behave with other people. We are so engrossed in the, maybe services, chanting, the limbs of bhakti. We are practicing that, but we are not working on ourselves, or our behavior, our attitude, how we talk to people, how we deal with people. A lot of times devotees wait for these qualities to naturally develop. They say that, these qualities will naturally develop as we practice bhakti. But it is not that we wait for that to develop, but it is also that we make conscious efforts to be nice, to become that person that we want to be. Radhanath Swami says this often. He says, fake it till you make it. Especially with humility, he says this, that don't wait for these qualities to come in you. Practice this until you make it. And I was thinking, Gaur Gopal Prabhu, he says this story. He said that when he was young in his brahmachari days in Radha Gopinath temple in the ashram, he said that they used to have buckets where they would fill water for showering, for bathing. And he said sometimes when the bucket would be full, he would kick the bucket aside, just kick it aside and close the water. And then one other brahmachari saw this and he said, Prabhu, why are you kicking the bucket? It's not nice. And Gaur Gopal Prabhu said that it's just a bucket. How does it matter? I'm just kicking it aside. But Gaur Gopal but the brahmachari who's observed Gaur Gopal Prabhu, he said that it is not about kicking the bucket, it is about the attitude. And he said, this attitude is impersonal and insensitive in nature of kicking the bucket aside. And that will carry on in your life, and it will grow in your life, and it will show in your relationships with people. So right from the beginning, it is very important to work for us all on these seemingly trivial small habits, to work work on our attitude and our behavior. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Mataji.
I just remembered something that your spiritual master said, His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, in class. He said that he was with Radhanath Swami one time, and someone asked, well, how do we become humble? How did you become so humble? And Radhanath Maharaj said, I practiced.
Yes. Yes. It's true.
Actually, thank you, Mother Kunti. Actually, your question from the beginning immediately reminded me of Lord Nityananda Prabhu and the story of Jagai and Madhai. And that is what being a devotee means sometimes. I took it in the way of not only other devotees, but outside materialists who are not devotees, who treat you in a condescending manner. I personally experienced it in my college days, when I was a young girl, trying to be, interested in spiritual life and having friends who thought that, oh, this is something you're supposed to do when you're 50 years old, why are you wasting your time in this right now? And I tried to tell them, we don't know. I don't know if I'm going to live up till 50, right? But it just reminded me that Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who is the entire cosmos himself, kind of laid down the example for us. That I think the point that I took away from that story is that even if they are condescending, what we need to practice is that we don't make that judgment about them, and we still be approachable for them. I mean, in case of Nityananda Prabhu, he still went ahead and approached them. I'm not sure if I have it in me to approach someone who can be condescending, but at least still remain approachable for them. So that was just one thought that came to my mind.
Wonderful.
Offer this beautiful cake to the Guru and Krishna. And we've got this nice answer here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now end. It's breakfast time. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Ki jai.